Sooner Nation, welcome into another episode of Sooner Spotlight, your all-access pass for all things Oklahoma Sooners athletics. I'm your host, Josh Mahler. You can find me on X, formerly known as Twitter, at RealJoshMahler. Follow the show over on Instagram at Sooner Spotlight for all updates on the show and so much more. And just a reminder, Sooner Spotlight is a member of the OU Insider content lineup. So to keep up with even more Sooner sports, go over to OUinsider.com today. Get signed up with the greatest Oklahoma sports community out there, and don't miss out on any more of the inside scoop. Let's go ahead and get started with it. First, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts, give us a 5-star review. It's the best way to help us over on those platforms. And we're just going to get going with it because Oklahoma had an amazing weekend, a very short weekend in baseball, as they were able to run rule sweep the Missouri Tigers, a terrible baseball team, and Oklahoma pulled it out exactly how we would have imagined and exactly how we would have hoped that they would have been able to do, because it would have been very embarrassing for the Oklahoma Sooners to have been the first victory for Missouri in the SEC play. So very good job by the Oklahoma Sooners. It was an absolutely amazing performance. We're going to talk about it, but first I'm going to bring in two guests that I've got with me, both of them from the Oklahoma Baseball Experience. I've got Johnny Baseball as well as Brandon Schultz with me here on the show. Guys, thank you so much for joining.
Yeah, man, thanks for having us.
Absolutely.
I'm very excited to, be able to kind of meet you guys, kind of get into your guys' circle, and kind of learning more about Oklahoma baseball from you guys. I've learned a lot from Johnny just from the little bit of talking that we've done. I didn't realize that there was so much that I was out of the loop on in college baseball, or I guess Oklahoma baseball specifically. But what a huge weekend for the Sooners. They run rule all 3 games against Missouri. And of course, with the weather and everything kind of going on, of course, everyone around Oklahoma, around pretty much anywhere in the Midwest, has to be careful of tornadoes. But if you're in Columbia, you've got to watch out for baseball-sized hail, because you got guys like Easton Carmichael and Drew Dickerson, and the list goes on. All kinds of guys hitting big-time home runs out there in Columbia. 46 total runs scored in the series, most in a single series this season for the Oklahoma Sooners. It was just a huge weekend. There was 10 home runs total for the team. A bunch of guys. It was absolutely incredible going through. I'm gonna run through real quick for you guys to kind of go through some of these stats for the guys individually. You've got Trey Gamble, 7 RBIs, Jackson Willett, 7 RBIs. Even Mason Hamlin got in there, got an RBI. Easton Carmichael with 10 of them on the weekend. Dayton Talkie, 3 RBIs, Drew Dickerson, 5, Sam Christensen, 6, Dawson Willis, 2, Jason Walk, 2 RBIs, and Kyle Branch with 2 of them. Happy to see him hitting well as well. And then 10 homers from Trey Gamble, had 2 in game 1. Easton Carmichael had 2 in game 2 and 1 in game 3. So a 3 home run day for him in the doubleheader that we had on Friday. And then Jason Walk had 1 in game 2. Sam Christensen had 1 in game 2 and 1 in game 3. Drew Dickerson 1 in game 3, and Kyle Branch 1 in game 3. 4 straight run rule victories between Oklahoma State and Mizzou for Oklahoma, as well as 1 just a little ways back against Vanderbilt. That took all the breath out of me to try to go through all of those big time offensive stats. There's more that we could go through. But guys, Johnny, I guess I'll start off with you real quick. What stood out for you? And let's start off with the team. What stood out to you this weekend for this big-time series for the Oklahoma Sooners?
The run support finally backed up the level of pitching we have. All 3 games, they were pouring it on. So that is exactly what stands out. We get these great starts from Kyson. You get a great start from Crosland, get a great start from Malachi, and sometimes our offense just isn't there. And that's got to be disheartening for not just our pitching staff, but for our offense as well, So to have them put together a complete performance for the whole weekend, and I understand it's Missouri. That is about as bottom of the barrels you can get as far as not just the SEC, but college baseball in general right now. They are not a healthy program. So no, I'm just glad that we were able to put the foot on the gas, and not let up.
Yeah. I mean, it was big, and like you said too, the offense was obviously the one that stands out the most, and the consistency behind the bats, consistency on getting on base. How about you, Brandon? What stood out to you so much for this Oklahoma baseball squad this weekend? I mean, regardless of being Mizzou,
Hmm.
it was a great weekend for them.
Yeah, I mean, I think a couple of things to me. One, it wasn't just the big names at the top of the lineup that really produced. I think Kyle Branch having the games that he had today, going out of the ballpark. I know he's got 2 home runs on the year, but that's the first one out of the ballpark
Yeah.
was cool to see. And I know that's something you had talked about. Um, but I think the other thing I do agree, obviously, like the Tigers are not the best baseball club out there, but at the same time, I think they are comparable to some of the teams that we played earlier in the year, in level of talent and all that. And we did not sweep all three of them, games at the beginning of the year. So the fact that we swept this full series actually to me kind of shows that we're better than we were at the beginning of the year, because there were some games against like a CSUN, that actually ended up being kind of close, or 4 or 5 runs. But sweeping this weekend and getting run rules in every game where they were all pretty much snoozers, um, you know maybe shows that we're better than we were at the start of the year, in my opinion.
Yeah, and like you said too, even comparing teams that are similar opponents for, let's go back to LSU. LSU swept Oklahoma. It was a close sweep, but it's not the same when you really take it down and look at what happened there. But LSU beat them. They swept them. They beat them by let's see, by 7, by 1, and by 5. Where Oklahoma won by 10 or more in all of these games. I mean, that's 3 straight games. I think anybody, when you're playing college baseball, being able to run rule an opponent not just once, not just twice, but close it out a third time, I think that's huge. And one thing that I think stood out to me is we were talking about this whenever you guys had me on your show the other night. I, now I'm definitive. Skip Johnson did not keep Malachi out for, or sorry, Kyson out for muscle spasms. He mixed up the pitching lineup against Vanderbilt to mix things up. It's a strategy thing. Can't change my mind anymore because he did it again this weekend. You saw Jason walk in the 5 hole. I mean, I love that look with Jason. Jason's a great leadoff hitter. But there's certain moments where he steps into that 5 spot there in the batting lineup, and he looks dominant. And so I love seeing that from him. I know he had a little bit of a rough offensive going overall throughout the series, but still we see the big moments from him whenever he's in that 5 spot. So yeah, I think just seeing the consistency behind the bats and offensive performance each game too. That's incredible to be able to do that 3 games in a row, all within 2 days. And then on top of that, you just had a midweek game just a few days before where you did the same thing. So really awesome to see that from the Sooners and seeing how much defensively. I think you guys kind of mentioned a little bit of pitching. What stood out to you guys? I mean, Brandon, I'll start off with you. What stood out to you pitching wise with the Sooners this weekend?
Pitching. I mean, I think we did what we needed to do. I mean, I don't think there was anything surprising. I thought Cade didn't have his best stuff, and it was a good weekend to not have your best stuff. Really good weekend to not have your best stuff. I don't know that anything really spectacularly stood out to me on the pitching side, other than we threw strikes. And that's,
Mhm.
especially, with a team that's not going to hit very much, that's all you got to do. If you walk them, that's when you start giving them the opportunity. I don't think we walked a lot of guys. So, from a pitching standpoint, that's that. From a defensive standpoint, we might set a record for outfield errors this year.
Yeah.
But I mean, they were already a little high going into the game, but last night. But yeah, we definitely had a couple of miscues, which
Well, and I think that speaks out too. And I mentioned something during the game. I posted something out there that this is a game that you can afford those kinds of errors,
right,
but
yeah,
you don't want to see that kind of an error where it's just a bonehead mistake. you just flat out did not pay attention where you were on the field, and talking about Christensen not realizing where he was on the foul line. That was really the only bad play. I know Trey Gamble had a drop. I'm trying to think. There was one other error. It might have gone on Kyle
Yeah,
Branch
I was going
too,
to say,
right?
Branch probably think we're going to be picking on him.
Well,
But
yeah, and honestly, his I think that error to me seemed one of those that happens.
yeah,
You're especially second baseman or even shortstop. You can allow that to happen pretty often. I mean, fairly often. You don't want it to happen too much. You want to get a stop to it. But for running out there and just not realizing that you weren't to the foul line yet,
right.
that was, and then to argue as if no, challenge it, coach. And coach is like, dude, no, I'm not challenging that. Sorry, I'll trust you any other time. But regardless, it was a moment that you could afford in this kind of matchup where you've got Missouri. So at least that's not happening against an LSU. But the frustrating thing that I think you saw a little bit from Skip even in today was we want to execute with perfection because of how we've been playing against the LSUs and Alabamas, even dropping a game to South Carolina or Mississippi State when we probably shouldn't have. That's a big thing. Anything stand out to you defensively, Johnny?
No, I mean, I was just about to mention the same thing you guys were, the errors. And just to go a little bit further in that, it is somewhat worrisome that hopefully these things don't rear their ugly head later on in the year in a more important environment.
Yeah.
If we're in a SEC tournament game where it's important, if we are in a, regional game where it's important, super regional, and beyond that, it seems to happen with teams. You saw it happen to Arkansas, a few years ago. But you see everybody in the team has these moments. I mean, we've seen Willis have that issue. You've seen Branch have the issue. Now, I mean, even with Jason Walk, he had a play. I think it was over the last weekend where he had a can
Yeah.
of corn in the outfield, and it just falls. It's gonna happen, but and like you said, have it happen now. Don't have it happen in June. So.
Yeah, it's very important, and I think right now too, and you kind of hear from the way that Skip talks in interviews or anything, is that we're dialing in right now.
Yeah.
That's the way he talks. Oklahoma wants to dial in right now because you're getting closer to looking towards regionals, super regionals, and making it to Omaha. How do we win in Omaha? You can't be making these mistakes when you get to Omaha, and that's one thing too. I mean that field feels bigger than what it even is in Omaha because of the stage that it's on. And so you've got to recognize that whenever you get to Charles Schwab, it's hard to hit a ball deep. When you get to Charles Schwab, if you drop one in the outfield, it feels like you're throwing three outfields in to get it back in. The stage is bigger. The pressure is 10 times tougher. And so yeah, there's a lot that goes into that when you get closer. And I think that's what Skip is really trying to press on this team. But now with Oklahoma, with this, I think the biggest thing too to take away is just that this is some offensive confidence being instilled into the guys. I think this is, with 4 straight run rules, you've got a 5th one. I mean, honestly, this is 6 games in a row now that have ended in less than 9 innings. We just won't talk about one of them happening in Game 3 against Vanderbilt. But still an impressive thing that out of your last 5 wins, you've had a run rule. That's really impressive, and I think that's also awakening to Reggie Willitz's offense, saying, "Hey, look, there still is chaos here. It's still, it's still happening." And much like what I've heard from the players and from the coaching staff, if you just execute the game plan that's given to you, Oklahoma's got a great game plan, and especially offensively. So I think that's big. And guys, I don't know about you, but one thing really stood out to me that I didn't realize until watching them perform against Oklahoma is that Mizzou is really bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They are terrible. And I knew that going into it. You're 0-13, whatever it was going into this.
0-15.
Yeah. So 0-18 now,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. So so 0-15 going into 0-18. Yeah, they are really bad. By all standards.
Like you had mentioned earlier, you'd look at common opponents. I mean, look at their series with Texas. I know that it wasn't exactly the most competitive series, but Texas only run ruled them one time.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, if you're going to use that as comparison, OU definitely did the better job there. So I mean, I know we try to find things where we can, because there is no parity in college baseball. It there just isn't. Anybody can beat anybody on any given weekend. We've seen it happen. I mean, what Georgia getting taken out, So and everybody thought that they were just world beaters, and they probably still are,
Yeah, or even the way that Auburn was able to sweep LSU
Yep.
is crazy.
Yeah, exactly.
South Carolina just took down Ole Miss
Yep.
2 games in a row. I don't know. I think the third game's probably tomorrow. But yeah, I mean, there's all kinds of things, especially in the SEC.
Yeah.
And I know we talked about that a little bit. I talked about it with a good friend of mine who's an Auburn guy. He's an SEC guy, Blake Lane, just a couple of days ago. How there's teams in the bottom of the SEC that are very liable to make a run. When you look at the Kentuckies or South Carolina, honestly, I could see 15 of the 16 teams making it to postseason the way that it's running right now. And honestly, I think 12 or 13 is probably going to make it.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
To look at almost an entire conference making it to postseason.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a really good segue into what I'm really paying attention to right now and this weekend and starting to look forward and project. I mean, I think going into this weekend, we talked about it, a sweep was really important here to get 3 wins. Magic number in the SEC is usually 13 wins, and you're just 3 away with 4 weekends to go. That's a really good position to be in. But also taking care of business opens up a lot of possibilities with the movement that's happening around the league right now. I mean, Vanderbilt's up on Georgia, looking like they're going to win that game. You mentioned Ole Miss getting taken out already. And what we're seeing is the top 4 or 5 teams really are starting to, really the top 2 are starting to extend. And then there's some opening for top middle of the pack, Johnny, like you were saying earlier this week, where, you're looking at Auburn, taking on a couple of losses, Ole Miss taking on a couple of losses, Georgia taking on a couple of losses. There's a chance that OU could be 5th or 6th in the league after this weekend, depending on how things fall out.
That's projectable to hosting, man.
That is extremely projectable to hosting.
And then next weekend, you go and you take a game. I think you have to expect that for Oklahoma. You take a game, in Athens. If you're able to squeeze out a second game and steal that series, you're looking really good up there. You're talking 4th, 5th in the conference.
Yeah.
Especially the way LSU's kind of had a little bit of a downward spiral, which I think they'll be fine. Personally, I think they'll be fine. You're going to have that every once in a while in the SEC, where you go through this gauntlet, and sometimes you just have a tough go around, and you start to lose a couple of games that you shouldn't. But yeah, right now, Texas is stupid good right now. And watching the way that they've kind of bullied Auburn a little bit, and Auburn's keeping themselves close. But I was watching them a little bit against Auburn, and that's a tough one. But yeah, you're right. I mean, Oklahoma's up there, and this is exactly what I know we talked about it the other night when I was on your guys' show, and I talked about it just the other day with Blake, talking about how Oklahoma sweeps this series like they should. They're up there again in the top, in the upper middle of that pack, which is a really good thing in the SEC. And Brandon, I know you had the stat about 16 games. If you can win 16 in the SEC, even with 15, if you go 15-15, you might still be able to have a really good shot of hosting. So I mean, it's incredible. Which we'll talk about that a little bit more here in just a second. First, players that stood out to you guys in this series. Johnny, let's start with you. What's maybe a player or maybe some players that either performed better than expected or you feel like they got back in this series?
I mean, I don't know if there's anybody I could say who got back. I mean, first of all, Dawson Willis, he had a pretty decent weekend in the ball. I think he probably heard us talking bad about him. But as far as anybody who stood out, I mean, Jackson Willis did his thing as per usual, you know. Gamble, Gamble looks just phenomenal right now. I think he's got the second highest OBP in the SEC right now. I think there's only
Yeah,
one other
wouldn't
person
shock
ahead
me.
of him, you know. And so just continuing to do what they do and continuing to believe that they are good. You know, sometimes I feel like if our team feels like they get to a spot where they're comfortable, we probably saw that against Vanderbilt, on that
Yeah.
Sunday game where they just get comfortable. I don't want them to press, but I also want them to believe that they are capable of competing with just about anybody. And I feel like this weekend, while we were playing a subpar opponent, OU has in the past played down to those types of teams, and they didn't do it this weekend. And so, as far as individuals that stood out, I mean, throw a rock in that dugout, right? You're going to hit one.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it was a really good performance all around, too. And you threw some names out there. Brandon, anybody stand out to you this weekend specifically?
Dickerson.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that
Oh
was
yeah.
going back to his home state.
that was a big one for me. And I'm a big Dickerson. And he was like when he yeah, we'll finish that up. I'm a big Dickerson fan.
Johnny chuckled first, so
Yeah,
I
there you
had
go.
a hard time holding it back.
But man, when he signed and he got recruited, I told Johnny, I was like, this is the most excited I've been for a recruit just
Oh
because
yeah.
of his size. I mean, at that age and his ability, and I've been wanting to get him more and more in games because man, I really want him to stay at OU, and I think that's going to happen. But boy, when you think about that we've do not want to move past this season too quickly, but boy, next year is going to be really, really, really interesting. And so he really stood out to me. I think he just has good at bats all the time. Even if he's getting out, he's getting deep into counts. He's doing something, moving runners. I just think he's a good baseball guy. And to see the power come out a little bit this weekend was awesome.
Yeah, yeah, he was definitely one that stood out to me. I think Trey Gamble in game one. I mean, Dickerson too. The locker buddies. Yeah, they had an amazing game one. And like Johnny said too, I think you pretty much throw a rock in that dugout, you're going to hit somebody that had a big game. It was tough too. As I was trying to write notes, I usually when I'm going through the game, I'll write notes and then go back on those to write my articles or anything. And it was tough to keep up with it all because there was so much. And to your point too, Brandon, next season could be special because realistically, Oklahoma could have the exact same team come back next year with maybe a couple of additions. Obviously, we know that there's a few of those guys that are probably going to move on, whether hopefully not by the transfer portal, but that's a possibility. But most likely, we're going to probably lose at least one of the Witherspoon twins, if not both. And there's a few others that are probably juniors, probably going on, because they've got bigger things ahead of them. But realistically, Oklahoma's young enough that they could bring back the exact same team, which is incredible to look at.
You're going to lose your entire weekend.
Yeah.
What's that?
You're going to lose your entire weekend to the draft this offseason.
Yeah.
I mean, just to do a quick runaround, I mean, you probably retain the entire outfield. Even possibly Gamble. I think Gamble's your biggest draft risk right there. And then in the infield, I mean, Willis, he either is getting drafted or moving on, but the rest of it sticks together. I mean, I don't think Taki might be draftable. He might be one of those guys who's, you could see him going mid rounds, but
Yeah.
other than that,
And I think it would he's one of those guys too that I think it's just smarter if he does stick around. I would like to see Malachi stick around another year because if you make him your sole ace next year with a little bit of coaching from Skip,
yeah,
I mean we've talked about it today. So today he had I think his best day. I mean, I hadn't compared his stats to really dive into each game, so there's probably one that I'm forgetting. But I think this was his best day because he only allowed one run, and it was one that got clipped, and it was an extremely difficult strike zone that even Skip was getting pretty ticked off about. So and I haven't confirmed if that's exactly what Skip was getting mad about, but that's kind of what it seemed like. For I'm not an expert at reading lips, but I saw a few words being thrown in there that kind of make me think that's what it was. But regardless, even with that strike zone as inconsistent as it was by the umpire behind the plate today, it was an amazing day for him. He was able to put it where he needed to. He was able to close out some of the 3-2 counts. And even when they didn't, they were able to retire with men on base. And again, only allowing one. So it was a really good day. I personally think, without going back and diving into it, I think that was the best performance that I've seen from him, at least in the last several outings. And so I think Malachi coming back would be huge, and I think it could really boost him a lot more if he were to come back. But I'm not gonna throw shade at anybody that wants to move on to the next level.
Not at all.
I think you have to just take your opportunity if it's there. And I think if he's one of those guys too, if you're in the top 3 rounds and you're projected up there, you probably just got to dip.
Yeah.
But
I'm gonna do something right now, Josh. I'm going to invite you to be on our draft episode that we do every year.
Yeah.
Because it's a pretty big deal for us, where we pay attention to the draft, and then we also talk about what possibly is going to happen with people who may or may not sign, who we're retaining, who's moving on. So I would really love for you to be part of that when it comes around, because it is a really fun episode for us.
Yeah, I think that'd be fun. Just remind me when it is and stuff, and I'll definitely try to make time for it.
It's really interesting. I'm very bad at it. Johnny's better at that than me, for sure. I'm better at the postseason RPI number crunching, that sort of thing. But I'm always way too they're not going to go. And Johnny's a lot more of a realist in that aspect than I am. But, just going back to losing our full weekend rotation, I think that's a very big possibility now. I think it's going to, how Cade and Malachi, finish out the year is going to be a big part of that. If they pitch the way that we think they have shown that they can pitch and that they should pitch, then they're gone. But if either one of them struggles the rest of the way, is there an opportunity where they slide a little bit further down and come back? I think so. But I always look at Skip and what he's been able to do recruiting wise from a pitching standpoint, and people wanting to come here because he is a pitching guru. And the years that we have to reload on offense, I always have more question marks than when we have to reload on pitching, because I think I always know that Skip's going to reload pitching very well. And it's just the years, like this year, the big question mark was the offense. And so that was to me, a little different than going into last year, where we had a lot of our offensive prowess back. So that's just one thing I've been thinking about throughout this year. And plus, we have young arms that I really do think will slide into the rotation. Who knows who's gonna take that next step.
Yeah, well, and we were talking about it, so I had to look this up and see. You're right too. I mean, looking through here, we've got the Witherspoon twins could be gone, probably most likely both of them. You've got let's see here. I know I just saw a couple others too.
Crooks is probably gone.
Yeah, Crooks is probably gone. Reed Hensley is probably gone unless he gets another year extension. I was just looking at another one too. Jamie Hitt is probably gone.
Mm-hmm.
Now, does Hitt have eligibility?
I'm not sure.
I don't think so.
I don't think he does.
Yeah. I mean, I'd love to see him come back. I think he'd be one of those guys for sure that could absolutely benefit by coming back for one more year and really honing in on what he's had already. From what because I feel like he's one of those guys that you see constantly growing, and constantly improving. The big thing too is I think you look at some of the guys that have maybe another year or two of eligibility that will probably end up going to the draft because, for example, Malachi, you can look at his ERA and act like that's a big deal, or you can look at the potential that he has and recognize his spin rate on the ball and his accuracy and his understanding of the game and how much further he has to go, and you can draft him on that. I think even Cade Crossland might be another guy like that, where you can pay attention to stats, or you can watch the film and recognize that, hey, this is a guy that's got a lot of upside, and draft him off that. So there's a few guys that might catch us by surprise, with how well they end up doing at the next level, wherever it is that they end up going. But yeah, it is crazy thinking that, and that, because you mentioned that just a second ago, Brandon, like the pitching staff is going to look very different next year. It's going to look quite a bit different.
Well, and
I'm interested to see
I'll
that.
throw another X factor in there for you. There's that looming court case that's happening right now, where if you were in JUCO,
Yeah.
you were awarded another year of eligibility. So any of our guys who were JUCO, and the Witherspoons were both JUCO guys. Was it Mother was JUCO?
Yeah, Mother was. Yeah, he even Trey Gamble.
Gamble is yeah.
Crooks.
Crooks.
Yeah, Crooks.
And part of the
Man,
thing
if we can bring Dylan back one more year, I'd like that.
Well, and one of the big things in your draft year is signability. It used to be where when you get to your junior year and you were draft worthy and you were going to get a decent number, you went. There was no ifs, ands, or buts about it because you lost your leverage in your senior year. There was no other, you couldn't just say, hey, I'm going back to school, And so now that you have those kinds of things to work with, where you can say, hey, I actually have 2 more years to work with. I have, I can go explore this option with this court case and have another year. That drives your number up. The thing with Malachi is his brother is gone. Is there signability for him? Is he going to lean more towards signing because his brother is going? Or is he going to lean towards, hey, I got another year here, I can work with Skip and get better? I think that's the major factor in the whole thing. Now, if somebody comes and offers them both a, bag of cash, there's nothing we can do about it. So.
Yeah, and that's the tough thing in college baseball compared to nowadays in college football or even basketball, is that you can probably get the same or even more in NIL to stick around in other sports. I don't think that's really available in college baseball, comparing the numbers.
Well, Brandon and I've talked about this before. With the advent of NIL, when you go play minor league ball, you're going to be poor. You are going to be poor for a while. So why not stay in school for another year where you have your room and board taken care of? I mean, have you seen the dorms the players live in? They are nice. They are a lot nicer than what most minor league players stay in. And so that's another factor there.
Yeah, I think to me, when you look at OU baseball NIL, I see it less as a, not that there isn't value to it, but less of a value on the recruiting trail, because baseball NIL is really not, like, to your point, it's not the size of basketball and football where it's just, LSU is going to pay, Tennessee is going to pay, but most of the schools really are not, like, it's not an insane amount of money. Where I see it is, can you get Carter Frederick back? He signed, late round. I don't remember exactly how much it was, but, would he come back for 30 or 40 grand? Maybe. I don't know that. Some people just don't want to be at school, but that's where I see NIL for, and that's not specific to Carter Frederick. That's
no. I agree, man.
That's part of everything. Like, some people just want to go play ball.
Cardell Jones back in the day for Ohio State, he didn't come here to play school.
Yeah, right. No, that's and that's I mean, I don't blame that mindset at all, honestly, when you've got guys that have been dreaming about and working hard to play pro ball. But I really do think that there's room, and there's opportunity with NIL to keep guys at school more so than just recruiting, throwing money at recruits that haven't been proven. Like, I'd rather keep the guys that are like, boy, they're draft risk. Trey Gamble, for example, that's a guy that maybe Taki is a guy that maybe you could, make sure you keep with NIL dollars. So putting NIL dollars where they're, in my mind, that should be the point of NIL, rather than giving, some unproven, freshman high-level recruit that hasn't swung a bat at D1 yet a bunch of money.
Mentioning Taki pays to go to the University of Oklahoma. Taki does not make money playing baseball at OU. That is a crying shame. There's absolutely no reason a kid like that should not have something, at least a little bit of walking around cash,
So next thought on that, though, full scholarships next year.
Oh, yes.
Full roster scholarships. So hopefully that changes. And I guess the other question is, will OU be a school that fully funds the entire roster scholarship? How committed are we going to be? That'll be interesting.
If I got to go
I
knock
think
on doors and sell chocolate, we're getting. we're,
well, and I think now that you're in the SEC, you have to you have to start you know looking at all this and recognizing that this is this has to be maybe not as big, but this has to be at the importance that we've put into maybe the basketball programs or football programs. Is that you have to start to treat it a little bit like that. That and that's something, unless Oklahoma just doesn't care and doesn't ever want to be good, which I think would be ridiculous, because look at what you're doing this year in your first season in the toughest conference in college baseball. I think that's something you've got to invest in. And if Oklahoma were to make a really good run, even making it to far into the super regionals, or making it to Omaha. Let's say they win a championship. That's got to be eye opening to hey, we've got to start pouring this money in. And a big part of that, I think, right now is player development, because I don't think you're going to get. It's hard to get some of the recruits that Oklahoma wants to get, because they don't have player development, because they don't have some of the things that high schools have. Like, I think I've seen high school baseball programs that have better facilities, and that's not to knock Oklahoma. It's just to say, hey, we've got to start pouring it in here, because that's why Oklahoma has to get the JUCO players that trying to pull them out of JUCO to come, or you're not really able to go out there and always get the big time high school recruits, because you don't have these things to draw in those big time high school recruits. And so that's something Oklahoma, especially if they can make a really good run this season, has to wake up to.
Yeah, you gotta finish those three words. So you said player development. You gotta have player development facilities, because
Facilities.
OU
Yes.
is very good at developing players. They are very good. They are very good at doing
Extremely
it
good.
with the junk facility they have now. Imagine what Skip Johnson could do if he had a pitching lab.
Yeah.
And everything I've heard about our renovations, the first thing that's coming is player development, and then they will build the stadium around that, or upgrade the stadium around it. So they have an idea. We were mentioning, how much does OU care about it? You were saying, win a championship, get to Omaha, get to a super regional, see what happens with the interest. As far as welcome to 2022, Josh. We made it to Omaha. We made it to the finals.
Yeah,
And
all the way.
you know what we got out of it? We got renditions. You got drawings of what you might have.
Yeah.
And this kind of fires me up when we talk about this, because these are the second round of renditions that we've had. 2017, we got a first set. And it looks nothing like what it looked then, because now the new renditions have a lot more to it. And the only reason we have player development added onto it is because we made it to Omaha.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Well, and I think if you want to keep Skip around, that's something that, and I know that they understand that, and I know that, and I think when you talk about OU baseball admins, the guys that are dealing directly with baseball, they want it. They're trying to press for it, and I know that for a fact. I've talked to some of them, and I know that. But maybe higher up the ladder, I'm talking going all the way to just the guys that are overseeing all athletics. That's the guys that you've really got to wake up, and that's where I know you guys are big on it. I know Travis has been big on it. There's been other guys that are pouring in, trying to get the fan base to go and support these programs, and especially baseball right now, because baseball needs to grow to succeed. And that's definitely important. But I know we're talking far future. Let's jump back real quick and talk immediate future. What are your true, and I'll say unbiased as much as they can be, your true expectations of the Sooners as they finish out the second half of the SEC schedule? We're on to the second half now, on to the second 15, and trying to see what Oklahoma's able to do. Brandon, I'll kind of start off with you. Where do you see Oklahoma ending the season off? What's your unbiased or just your open expectations to Oklahoma right now as they get closer to postseason?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's completely changed this week and really the last week and a half. Um, Georgia looks vulnerable. They look very beatable. They did not look very beatable 2 weeks ago, or I guess that would be 3 weekends ago. So that changes the dynamic quite a bit to me. The fact that OU has gotten out of the offensive slump and taken care of business at home against Vanderbilt and 5 wins in 2 weekends is a big deal. So I think the way that things are shaking out in the SEC this weekend, and just kind of looking forward at the schedule that Vanderbilt has, they play, Georgia this weekend. They play Ole Miss next weekend, then Alabama. And then they finish it off with Kentucky. There's a lot of room for some of the teams that we've already played to beat up on each other. And as long as we take care of business down the stretch, being in that top 5 of the SEC, there's a real opportunity there. So
And if you're top five, you're
you're
hosting.
hosting, yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
absolutely. No doubt.
So I think, again, Ole Miss looks vulnerable.
Yeah, and you brought up Georgia. I didn't realize they're getting whooped right now.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
13-3 against a Vanderbilt team who Oklahoma dominated.
Yeah.
So, man, I know you're going on the road to Athens next weekend, but man, I mean, and here's the thing that that I know we talked about it. I've been trying to stress this to Oklahoma fans. Stop worrying too much about the LSU sweep. That's the one that got fans into a spiral. Oh no, we lost LSU. We got killed. They won 3 straight games. We didn't really get killed.
No.
And we talked about that. You're a couple of games into away from, or a couple of plays away from 2 of those games. And that's okay. And this weekend, we were talking about this the other night, that this weekend boosts you up and gives you hope, because this is a series that you expected to win. And so this is something that, even though you were behind 500, you knew that this series was coming up. And that's the way it should have played. But instead, Oklahoma fans just focused in on LSU. And then we closed out Vanderbilt by getting run ruled, and they focused in on that. You've got to take a big picture, a big picture look, and recognize where Oklahoma's sitting, especially after knowing that you're going to go to Columbia and most likely get the sweep. And you feel pretty confident about that. Even early in the season, you feel confident about that. That's one of those games those series that you write off. And yeah, you're right up there in the top of the pack now, especially with Georgia going down the way that they are. So
Yeah.
it's something that you've got to keep your mind open to it. You've got to look at everything from a big picture, especially with what's going on with them and Ole Miss, who are ranked above Oklahoma.
So to actually fully answer your question, I think I now realistically think we will win every series except for Texas, and you just got to take one there.
I like that. I mean, I like the optimism. Sooner fans call it sunshine pumping, and I hate that term so much. Hate that term. But Johnny, where are you sitting with Oklahoma baseball right now?
No, I feel great. You know me, I am one of those sunshine pumpers. I guilty
The
as charged.
sunshine pumper.
I am the sunshine pumper. Hey, but you
Yeah,
have to
I
understand,
think
more often than not, though, it is based on some sort of factor or knowledge that I have that makes me believe that's going to happen.
Yeah.
I've seen this team fall completely on its face before. We talk about how, Georgia's not playing so well right now. We say that, and then they run us out of the state. It happens. Baseball happens. We have a name for the opposite of what you just said, sunshine pumpers. We have a name for the people who freak out after series like LSU. It's called a casual. And they're all around, It is mind-blowing to me just how few people understand that just because you have one bad game, or hell, one bad inning, your season is not over. Look at Texas A&M. They were about to wrap their program completely up. And now they're on a nice run towards, possibly getting themselves in the postseason,
They're winning 6-2 over number 2 Arkansas right now.
Yeah. That's
as we're speaking.
And as our fearless leader Skip Johnson would say, that's baseball, man. That is baseball.
They won last night.
Yeah.
7-4 against Arkansas.
Baseball is a humbling sport. It is a very humbling sport. You can be and have just be $1 million athlete, and it will bring you back down to earth immediately. That's just how it is. But as far as art, as OU goes, I'm with Brandon. I feel like, every series from here on out is winnable. Now, I don't know if we are going to, fare as well as we, as I don't know, as he might think, I don't know. I really don't. I feel like Georgia is a very big test. It is in Athens. I feel like it's an opportunity for them to take some frustration out on us. Nobody is going to beat up on Kyson, so I feel good there. But as far as the other series go, we are going to be highly competitive, if not winning those series. And that even goes for Texas. I feel like we really match up well with them. It's not the same kind of rivalry as football. There's really not that, blood anger there. Most of them have played with each other for years.
Yeah.
It's the same with Oklahoma State. Most of these guys have played with each other. If you saw Jackson Willits on second base the other night in the Bedlam game, he's chatting it up with those guys because those are people he's played with for decades, or for over a decade. So I feel like we are going to be competitive in every series from here on out, and we will have a nice positioning towards the end, especially with the SEC tournament. I feel like it's going to, as much as I hate that, the way that format is, I feel like we're going to be in a good spot come tournament time.
Yeah. Hopefully, I think the tournament will really tell you the most about where Oklahoma's at. I'm right there with you guys. I think Oklahoma wins. Man, I think they have a very good shot, and they have the opportunity to win all but the Texas series. And I'll leave that Texas one open just because they are really good. Not going to be totally totally biased and say we can do it. Although I feel like we might lose one between Ole Miss and Georgia. I feel like that's one. Wouldn't surprise me if Oklahoma loses one of those. But I think I would rather it be Georgia because it's on the road. But at the same time, like the way that it's looking right now. So I'm taking a look. Oklahoma will for sure jump up 3 spots in the SEC this weekend. After this weekend, for sure 3 spots as long as everything that's going on currently ends up following through. Possibly 4, and then a weird runaround based on the calculations in my brain, possibly a 5th spot, most likely 3 or 4 spots. Oklahoma jumps up in the SEC standings. That puts them in a really good spot. And I mean, yeah, this is a dangerous Oklahoma team right now that looks very similar to other national championship teams that I've seen that start off looking good, go through their slump, and bounce back really hard. I'm just throwing that out there. I've seen teams that have that go that route, so I think Oklahoma fans have a lot to be excited about. Hopefully, we don't get too far ahead of ourselves and sunshine pump too much. But we've all got a favorite team, right? So we're gonna do that every once in a while.
You know what other team this is eerily similar to?
Which
2022. They have they have a
Oklahoma.
lot of similarities. I mean, we had a revamp of the weekend rotation midway through the season toward, finding guys late in the season who are going to help you offensively. That is exactly how that season worked. And I like it. I really like our positioning moving forward.
Yeah. You're right too. I mean, because Oklahoma was very much in that position, but the difference between the 2022 Oklahoma team and this one, this one's in the SEC.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
It just means more, guys. It just means more.
Just means
so. It's hard to get around that. And that was that. I was just talking to Blake about that too. That's one of those sayings that I thought was the cheesiest, corniest things. I hated hearing it. And then, when we started playing in the SEC, specifically in football, you have certain emotions, and the meaning behind that, like the fan bases are so much better in the SEC to be around, antagonizing to be around, but it's so much more fun if you're a true fan of sports, of bitter rivalries and chirping back and forth and having these battles. It's a lot of fun, but Brandon, Johnny, I appreciate both of you guys for hopping on, making the time to talk a little bit of Oklahoma baseball, recapping, and looking forward to the second half of SEC play with me. Brandon, I'll let you kind of take it away. Tell everybody, tell all my listeners where they can find your guys' stuff.
Yeah, the Oklahoma baseball experience. We're on X, formerly known as Twitter. I like how you said that. The artist formerly known as Instagram as well. We're on iTunes and Spotify. We really
on all of them, Brandon.
We're on everything. Dang
Yes.
it.
Yeah.
We really started in the 2022 season, which was really interesting. Beginning of the year, everyone remembers Twitter Spaces around that time. That was right after Lincoln Riley left, and that was like everybody's coping mechanism. And so we started doing the Twitter Spaces. It picked up steam, and started the podcast a little bit afterwards. And I think in 2023, and just kept rolling along. So we're excited about everything moving forward. We're excited that we have another specific OU baseball podcast to listen to. So appreciate you having us on.
Yeah, and again, I appreciate you guys for hopping on with me, for kind of being welcoming of another OU. I was talking to Johnny about this too, and this is something that I'll say while we're on the air too, is that I feel like there are some media people, and I feel like Oklahoma is pretty good about it. From what I've seen from other beat writers and things like that, you can be welcoming of others that are quote unquote competitors, because of the day of technology that we're in, where everything is on demand. So, you guys can listen to me talk about this, and then go over and listen to Brandon and Johnny talk about the same thing, because they're probably going to have a different point of view, different stats they bring up, different, objectives. I mean, that's the cool thing about the day and age that we live anymore. You don't have to tune in at 7 p.m. on Tuesday to be able to catch it. You can listen or watch whenever you want.
Well, let me just throw this out there real quick, because I think it's important. I don't think we've really ever said it on our show, but what people don't realize is we make $0 off of this. There's nothing. We actually have probably spent hundreds of dollars to be able to do this and try and give a platform to the guys. So when you talk about that, I think a lot of the media is like, and we recognize this too, because we had collaborations in the past with different outlets where we were just like, we don't want any money. We're just trying to promote OU baseball. Like, that's really what this is. Like, people may not believe that or not, but it truly is what we do. And we do have to realize, like, this is the way that some people make a living as well. Yeah. So we've got to be aware of that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. But again, appreciate you guys for hopping on, and for everyone watching, everyone listening. I will make sure to have a ton of links. I'll have you guys send those to me too. I'll make sure to have a ton of links down in the description if you want to find everything the Oklahoma baseball experience. Also heard of on ESPN during Oklahoma baseball games now too. So big shout out there. But thank you guys so much for hopping on.
Thanks, Josh. Appreciate it, man.
Hey Sooner fans, did you enjoy this video? Well, go ahead and hit that like button, and go ahead and hit that subscribe button. What are you doing if you've made it this far and haven't already? You should be able to find that subscribe button over here. And then if you want to see full episodes, we've got those up here, and clips right down here. So go check that out. But we thank you all so much for all the love, all the support. We'll catch you next time. Boomer.